Okay.
But we didn't introduce the subject.
We didn't. We
Okay.
didn't. So
This will be number one. We're going to talk about, we're celebrating 13 years, and therefore we've come up with 13 lessons. Take it away, seeding your dreams.
listen, we're not gonna lie to you. There's been probably a lot more of those than 13, but
We probably have 50,000.
we could probably write a few books. So anybody interested in us writing a book, let us know. Pero these are the 13 that we felt we really would love to highlight that have been really instrumental throughout the years. And so you were saying, numero uno, seeding dreams. And as you heard my sister, kind of give you that beginning, it took her a minute to kind of get to a point, right? Because she had to fight not just folks that were Debbie Downers in her world, but also fighting imposter syndrome, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like sometimes you don't know which one's worse. Imposter syndrome, when we just don't have that confidence within ourselves and our capabilities, or the people that surround you, which are, I feel like when you can face those elements and still push through a dream, that's still something to always celebrate, fam, because you'd be surprised how many people just will not go to step 2 simply because somebody made them feel bad about it or planted a little seed of insecurity. But today we celebrate that no matter what was going on, no matter how many Debbie Downers were around, you were like, we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it,
We're going to do it.
and so it's about celebrating the lesson. So even if the lesson came in a difficult way, but you still did it, And so I say bravo to that.
Well, I have to say, there is some podcast episode, it's probably in private mode, where I shared exactly what that number one is, and it's a really long story. This is why we're not going through it. The actual seeding of that dream and that manifestation, those 24 hours were pretty full of tremendo butcher. One thing that I've learned, and my sister has been instrumental in witnessing this, is sort of like the importance of seeding your dreams in private. Because I was a big mouth. I was crossing over from MTV world, so I felt I had that confidence, and I wasn't prepared for the Debbie Downers. I wasn't prepared because everything, even though I didn't love working at MTV, I loved working with the team that I worked with, and we kept growing and evolving and expanding year after year after year. And what I didn't realize that I took for granted in those spaces is that I was with people who saw me, who didn't question any little dream I had. If I said, oh, I think I want to create a budget on this or a show about that, or maybe I'll do this project, everybody would coalesce to help you make that happen. Mm-hmm. So I took for granted that when I switched and I went from professional media to independent media, and I wanted to start building with my friends or with people that I liked, I wanted to build with family, and sharing those dreams and sharing my visions, it wasn't going really well for me. I think it maybe slowed me down more than I was willing to admit those days, specifically because of people's comments, specifically because imposter syndrome started creeping in, and then specifically because people were laughing and mocking me. Like, people could be so mean, and we know that there's a lot of people in the community, right? It's like you get mixed messages. The community members and people in your family are like, children, go forth and be successful. And you're like, I think I want to be an author.
No, you can't.
And they're like,
you can't write.
they're like, ¿y qué se cree esta? All of a sudden, she wants to be a world literary machine, and she be thinking, and all of a sudden, some people be thinking that it's all about you, that you're full of crap, just because you said that you wanted to do something. Oh, we don't have an author in the book. Oh no, esta está así. We lost her.
That, or they just look at you and literally kill your dream. Like, you're not going to have any success in that. Like, the amount of times that someone's dream may have been watered down is just horrible. Like, we have to be, I feel like, as a human species, more mindful even to each other, like.
Especially with friends, right? Because usually when you're seeding your dream, you're sharing it with someone you think is going to witness your dream up. That's the key word, witnessing your dream up. And sometimes that means that maybe you're not even sharing your dream with your bestest friend, or sometimes even your partner.
Your parents.
Isn't that crazy? Because you know what doesn't work when you're like, hey, guess what? I'm dreaming that I want to take Cafecito break on the road and we're going to have an international world traveling experience. And then cut to somebody's going to be like, and when you're going to get the budget to do that?
Listen, when we had our little brick and mortar, you know, people would come in and they would get a lot of inspiration. You know, they would feel like, wait a second. So they would feel almost instantly comfortable to share their dreams with us, you know, like, and I would tell you the one thing out of our mouths pretty much almost immediately was always, I would immediately caution them, like, you know, be wary about who you share your dreams to, especially while you're just in development of it. You know, I always like to look at nature because nature always shows us, like, when a woman's literally growing her baby, God didn't make the baby on the outside. God didn't even make that see-through. It was within. It was for a long time, for months and months. And it was done so for a reason. You know, there's this birth that needs time and protection. This creation that needs time and protection to evolve to its beautiful potential. And we have to look at whatever we create in physical form in a similar fashion with that level of protection.
That's a great example, Alex. I really like that. You do have to do a protection. Now, if you are lucky to know that you have someone in your life that's going to witness up your dream, that's good. And don't let that be confused with, let's just say you're like, I got this, I'm going to leave my job tomorrow. And it's the job that you pay your bill with, and you're just gonna jump into following your dream, and there's no plan, there's no savings. Like, maybe that's when you need a touch of reality. Every little situation is a little bit different. You know your stage that you're at. If you haven't even taken a step toward your dream, take a moment right now and write it down. Before our little shop of love even became a thing, we drew it with pencils. We drew ourselves. We didn't even know, we didn't even think we would have a little shop. We drew our little faces, tabling. I don't know how to draw. I just draw little stick figures. And then I drew just little circles, and those were our crystals.
Or we would talk about it a lot, you know, the things we would envision, what we would want to do. And so those are different ways to begin energizing your dream, no matter what it is.
Also showing a little act of faith. Like, there were a couple of things that you could see it in private but still show the universe act of faith. So we will be like, I'm getting that little cushions because that's going to be for our future store. I'm going to get that little bucket because that's going to be in a future store. And then it was.
Then all of a sudden we had a little brick and mortar where Botanical was born.
Anything is possible. And when we were seeing that dream, we didn't even know anybody who knew or had crystals. We didn't even know we could buy crystals. We just had this vision. So if God has implanted you with that seed, that vision, and you're dreaming it, maybe it's because you got to take active steps to meet it. Do what you can with what you have. Okay, so number 2, keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your eyes on the prize. Oh no, stay focused.
Well, the first one carries on into this one, right? Because if you have folks and things trying to get in the way, and remember also, when you are trying to creation is beautiful light, you know, and you're bringing something that you're birthing that's beautiful energy, beautiful creative forces that you're generating within yourself, trying to manifest it in physical form. You know, negative forces are not just gonna be through like people you know or strangers. It may be like just random acts that just come at you to try to debacle you. And so yeah, when you set that course, when the sails are going, keep in mind that it is part of the journey. Like, you know, because again, bringing it back to, it's about celebrating the lesson learned. There was so many times with Cafecito Break where we, you know, it's like the sails were set, but my gosh, the winds that day weren't friendly, or the other boats and ships were not friendly, or even the people that surrounded us. But it was still finding a way not to lose focus and not to be discouraged, you know?
Yeah, with that, I'm going to say, I'm going to skip around to my. Sometimes in life, circumstances will require you to be bold and speak up. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, we had no idea that when we seated Cafecito break and we thought that this was just going to be about chatting lightly, talking about spirituality and life stuff, really news and politics and cultural conversations and all this tremendo bullshit that we've all been living, the sisters were staying far from it. We wanted to be in our little shop of love, chatting up with the community members, loving them up, guiding them to find their crystal friends. We were happier that way, away from the tremendo bullshit. But you know what they say, what you resist persists, and sometimes God will call you and summon you to do something because God knows you could do it. And while we were at that shop of love, trying to separate that from maybe how we were expressing ourselves through Cafecito break, the people that would come find us and talk to us there, and the things that they would share, things that they were going through day to day, informed us on some of the subjects that we would then specifically talk about on Cafecito break. Many subjects that we were 5, 8, sometimes even 10 years ahead of the game. We were talking about it. We were talking about drag queen story hours maybe 8 years ago or more. We were telling people that this was happening in some of the churches. We were freaking out about it, but people didn't believe us. Again, right? Like, part of it is also in those moments, it's like when people don't believe you, when people are laughing at you, and imposter syndrome is popping in, or they're looking at you like, who are you? You got like two followers. Who the heck am I? Why should I be listening to you? Well, that's a good question, right? One of the things about Cafecito break, also as another lesson, which would be lesson number 4, is who do you listen to? So these are lessons that we've learned through 13 years of podcasting.
Yeah, and you gotta have, when you're listening, when you're gonna take focus on that area, like listening, all of a sudden you're looking at that word from a much expanded lens. Listening, not just learning how to listen to yourself better, which I think Botanical was prepping us throughout those years so much more, almost like building those muscles, but learning how to be good listeners to the community, not just in terms of what they were coming into the shop with, the challenges that were coming up, but what it was showing us, how they were showing us that the culture was beginning to shift, or the challenges that we were seeing weren't just isolated in situations, but were becoming like a pattern that we were beginning to see. So like my sister was saying, even though there were things that we were trying to sort of keep such a line around within that world and Cafecito break, but the reality is there was never a line only in our heads, because the conversations that were taking place within the shop were all the things that eventually Cafecito break would be focusing on, and of course even more to levels that
not all the time eventually, but that there were sometimes those hot topics that we didn't want to touch about that would eventually make our Cafecito break. Cafecito break has pretty much been pro-social all the way through, so we were talking about it, but we were trying to stay away from the controversy, because cancel culture was starting to seed its ugly little legs, and we were seeing it, and we had already started experiencing it. This was years before COVID.
Well, yeah, because again, even when we were seeding our first business, we were already being canceled by our community. Like, putting aside just Cafecito Break for a second, following a path that was just different from the people that surrounded us, which was more of a spiritual path, we lost a lot of people. We got labeled demon, satanic. We had a lot of Debbie Downers. So there was just a lot of, but it wasn't just our community, fam. From a bigger perspective, it was already happening in the culture.
Yeah.
So we were experiencing all of this cancellation and censor, or just people beginning to sort of back away or close doors to us in terms of our path that we were following. But then we were beginning to see the examples of it in day to day, but we had no clue how bad that would become throughout the years. And especially once Cafecito really started to talk about those hot topics. Then it just really blew up.
And not contrary, it's exactly what we were afraid of started to happen. Whatever Cafecito Break was discussing did have consequences on our shop, did have consequences the people who we lost customers just by something Cafecito Break would post. Some people be like, oh, you support this? I'm never going to go visit your shop again. Oh, you posted this such and such. I would have never pegged you for someone who would have posted something by someone obviously they had no knowledge about. There was never a question of, oh, why are these girls posting about it? Let me learn more. It was always attack mode. And this is why these 2 points come together, right? Sometimes in life, circumstances will require you to be bold and to speak up. Sometimes with nervous laughter and sometimes shaking in your pantalones.
Yeah, like our friend Mr. Drum was saying, it's important to face the darkness and shed light on it. So you're right.
And even though we're talking about Cafecito Break and you hear us talking also about the spiritual shop, is because it's who we are. Like, we are two women who are walking this path. We committed our lives to walking this middle path, right? It's some people, there's almost like a holiness to a holy and a devotion to walking this path. I feel like Mr. Drummond would definitely know exactly what we're talking about. You're being called and you're being led by something much bigger than you, by the pulse of the universe, by the heartbeat of the earth, and it's calling you. And sometimes when you know that call, right, which I will say it will lead up to our next point, which is knowing yourself. Part of learning to know yourself is important to face the darkness and shed your light. So what my sister did at the beginning, if you're just tuning in, I would invite you to, it takes great courage to be going and feeling a deep amount of grief, sharing it, facing it, being vulnerable with it, and still saying to life, I recognize that I could try to enjoy myself at this moment. When we do that, we're not only doing it for ourselves, we're also setting an example for everything around us, because we are in many patterns as humans, as little networks to communities, that the pattern is so embedded that people, when something happens, they just only do one thing. So in our communities, in our lives, we were guided to, let's say, choose this path and don't look at spiritual ways of maybe the way you might regard. We were also guided to, go seek out a safe government job. So doing the path of botanical, seeking the path of Cafecito Break, these were not things that were supported by the most sacred human beings of our lives. And so we're being candid with you, because many of you find yourselves in that moment where you're really feeling in your body, your mind, you're restless with whatever that is that you want. Maybe you don't have the money yet. Maybe you want to build something, you don't have all the tools yet, but you have something, whatever it is, do it.
Yeah.
Do it. If you guys knew with detail all of the ways that it almost felt the devil was coming to our face so that we won't get to another moment and point in our journey, it is unbelievable. The tears that have been cried, the anger, all the things that we've lost, the websites that we've lost, the hundreds of videos that, well, we almost have 1,000 videos in private. Like, there's 13 years of Cafecito Break is nowhere to really be found except as a representation through us, right? That's part of the cancel culture journey, but it's okay. We're rectifying it. We're telling you the stories. We'll probably write little books or whatever and share it. We want to leave you with that message. Don't give up on whatever it is that you see and it's repeating. It's God is giving it to you for a reason.
And to, well, like you've heard a few times today so far, celebrate the lesson. Most lessons are going to come in pretty rough, you know, because they're coming in to really teach us or to help us grow. Yeah, listen, we're sharing all of this to show you that we're not trying to sit here BSing you. Like, we really have had to dig real deep to be brave at different points and to keep pushing or to support each other, right? Because there's been times where maybe she has to be the one to be like, let's keep going, or I have to do that for her, because again, we're human. We have these real human moments where we're not always like, you know, right there with the best of vibe or mindset. But these lessons, every single time we've been able to really understand these lessons and just keep going through them and overcome them, they've been very empowering and have expanded us even more, has blessed us with more confidence, has blessed us with more grounding, has blessed us with amazing memories and fun times, like on and on. And so, like my sister was saying, trust the call. And let me tell you something, if all you have is paper and a pen, and that's all you can do right now, that is still doing. And that is no little thing. That's all it takes.
I'm showing you my little book because my sister said if only you have paper and pen. This little booklet, great things never came from comfort zones. See, those little lessons, that wasn't one of the lessons we were telling you about today, but this is a bonus one. So, another one. This is a pet peeve for Cafecito Break, especially this chick over here. Especially if you're a person who's co-hosting and doing little projects with me, and we're doing it consistently. What is it that I always like to say? Do you listen to the words that are coming out of your mouth? One of the most uncomfortable things that many people do not like to do, and some of you are guilty about this. If you're a content creator, you will record yourself and then you'll press play, send it out to the, you upload it, send it out to the universe, but you never hear yourself. You never hear how you sound. You never hear how you're communicating with other people. You never, and why is that not very helpful, especially if you're a content creator like us and you want to expand? Or maybe you're a communicator and it's going to be helpful for you on any level to learn how to communicate. 13 years of Cafecito Break. We have done hundreds and hundreds of podcasts, hundreds and hundreds of interviews. So that's audio and video throughout the years. Maybe we're in the thousands in each, right? You start learning little things. Sometimes a pause in between invites the other person who might be timid to say something. Sometimes when you listen to yourself, you can say, oh man, I'm saying a lot of ums, or I'm saying a lot of likes, and you couldn't smooth out the process. Or sometimes if you have an interview or it's a round table and you have an hour but you've been speaking for 30 minutes, the math doesn't add up when you look at the other guests that you have, or maybe somebody you're interviewing, or maybe there's a question and answer period. These are little moments that if you want to improve your skill set, you have to listen to the words that are coming out of your mouth. Punto.
I agree with that. I think that we all can. You know, I feel like when it comes generally to communication, it's important to remember that there's always a lesson, right? There's always going to be a way to shizzle, to become more chiseled. There's always going to be a different perspective or a different way. So I feel like it's one of those areas where, like you said, make sure you're always listening into yourself, because there's always a way to improve, you know?
This is the chips. This is one my sister says all of the time. Don't be afraid to evolve, right? It's okay to change. And there have been times, if you hear the beginnings of Cafecito Break, from the way we would express ourselves, to the topics we would cover, to some cultural topics where we look back at it, it was like, yeah, maybe we don't see it that way anymore. Maybe we've changed our mind. Why? More information has come in, etc., etc.
But I feel like that's really important, because it also shows not just ourselves, but the community and anyone that has always been there in a supportive method, that there's integrity, that we are willing to say, hey, you know what, I used to look at this way, but now I have more information, other ways of looking at something, other perspectives, and now I've shifted the way I look at something. And that's, at the end of the day, what we're all here on this earth to do. It's to evolve. If anything, if you're not evolving, if you're not expanding, if you're not growing, then we have to be asking ourselves, have I become too stagnant? You know?
This is the truth. This is another one. Being consistent. Being consistent. Mm-hmm. That's a muscle that anyone can benefit from. Like when we're trying to break a habit, right? They always say, oh, we're trying to create a habit, you have to do it for a certain amount of times. I believe it's 30 times for it to like just be ingrained. But, you know, even in laughter yoga, you don't feel like laughing? Start laughing, then butte. Eventually, you'll trick your body to, oh, she's laughing again. And you're sending these little happy signals. So being consistent, even if it feels fake at first, even if everything around you is like, I don't want to do it, just pick a time and start it. Maybe you want to start meditating. You don't have an hour experience, start practicing for a minute at a time, and let us know how that worked out for you.
Just do it, mi gente. Just do it.
Do it. Okay, we got a few more. Another one influenced by Alex, and she's been instrumental in helping me with this one, is being respectful of your craft.
I don't know if I'd say I've been instrumental with that, because my sister has always had beautiful relationship with any of her crafts. And I feel like, if anything, you've taught me that, you know, like my craft is something that I'm birthing and requires that level of respect, that I show up, that I honor, that I show up being my best, that I'm consistent. Like all these lessons that have come out so far have really come because you do have respect for your craft. And that's always been like a part of who you are, I feel. And so for me, I feel like that's like a lesson that I get to see her throughout the years really model for me even more and more and more.
Boundaries are important. My sister has influenced this one too. And thank you for what you said about being respectful of the craft. I love Cafecito Break. I love what we've created. Something that we were saying about Cafecito Break since its birth, which was officially in 2011, because we were doing community events, and then 2012, March 8th, is when we became a little podcast. And we would tell people one community member at a time. Always. We always cared more about building real in-person relationships. And with the power of the internet, we have also built beautiful internet relationships that are organic and authentic. So love to all of you who support us, who love us, who nurture us. But yeah, the boundaries, Cafecito Break boundaries. Everyone who works around us at Cafecito Break are like, oh snap, we're seeing a different version of Rosangel over here. I didn't know she could be so. I was like, no, we're starting at this, we're ending over here.
Some fueguito.
And thou shalt not cross Cafecito Break.
Well, you got to look at it like symbolically. It's a baby, like
little
a
baby.
creation is someone's baby. And therefore, that's where those boundaries come from, that inner guidance to protect what's being created.
All right, we've got two more. This is number 12. Actually, I think this is 11, 12, 13. Sorry, three more. This one, how are you creating value? Something that we ask ourselves a lot here through the in ways that we express our craft. How are we adding value? That's also important for those of you who are creating content and you want to communicate something depending on your medium. Shorter message and more concise might be the best. One of the ways that we've been instrumental, especially with young budding politicians, we've helped them. We've interviewed so many young people who are or people who are budding into wanting to run for office, and a lot of times when we're interviewing them, we try to help them to say, tell us your most important points in a minute. Sometimes that overwhelms them, then get into the other stuff. So keeping it concise, hook people, and then going in to explain lessons we've learned in 13 years. We're imparting some of them to you to help you with your craft. Do you have anything to say on that one? Okay, two more community members. It's okay to take a break. That's the break in Cafecito, right? Sometimes, while it's important to be consistent, as you know, life happens, circumstances happens. Like when COVID happened in 2020, we were about to move into, going strong into doing podcasts every Monday, 11 a.m. for over 8 years, and that stopped. That stopped abruptly, and it was heartbreaking. But it was necessary because, as you saw, the world changed from that point on, and we're still trying to get a handle of it. And being here right now in this happy hour is one of the ways we're trying to, I don't want to say rectify because we're just two people, but I don't know what the right word is. We're trying to undo some of those horrible, painful moments of those years.
Well, we're always in support to build and or rebuild relationships and community time and bonding, because we understand the healing that happens from that. We understand, it's interesting when how some people, they talk about like mastermind groups, like get together with a mastermind group, focus on something, make shit happen, and they're powerful. I mean, when people are part of those things, they're powerful. But what we forget is that actually when you're around community, it's actually happening, a version of a mastermind, especially if everybody's in synergy. Mm-hmm. And being in synergy doesn't mean that you're all the same. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean you agree with everything, but it's like there may be some universal things that everybody's coming together to support, to because they're in alignment with, because they absolutely are passionate about it, whatever the case is. But then what's happening is that's being energized, and it's so powerful. And folks being too isolated or not making time to be in community are missing out on opportunities to create these mastermind moments very naturally and very free even.
This is very true. And that brings us to our 13th lesson that we'd like to share with you. And my sister has already given you that little preview. It's all about relationships, all of it, from one community member at a time, from the relationship you have with yourself, to the relationships you build with your community, to the relationships you build with your family, to the relationships you build with your colleagues, to the relationships you start building with people you disagree with and maybe almost hate.
Yeah. And that you maintain them, because it's not just like, hey, let's have a nice moment and then it's like, bye, but find ways to maintain them. Of course, there's always going to be ones that are going to feel a little bit more closer than others. That's natural. But, we don't always have to burn bridges. We don't always have to close doors. Yes, time changes a lot of things. People change, but relationships are really the foundation of everything.
Absolutely, mi gente. If you want to help us celebrate our 13 years, join one of our Substacks, become a member, right? That's a easy way to really energize, because we are 100% independent. And with the closing of our small business of almost 10 years and being closed out in New York, being cancel cultured, we have had to be very creative in the ways we create a way. And one of the best ways that you can keep supporting our endeavors, become a member of one of our Substacks, and or leave a one-time donation. You could see our profiles, go crazy. But the bestest way is always liking, sharing, leaving a few word comments, not just a little emoji. I appreciate it, we appreciate it, but in terms of like when we study the what people are saying, how your community, our community, we can build and support one another, is really by engaging, sharing, and commenting. That helps others who are looking for videos like ours, and we're really censored. We should be in the millions with all of the stuff and all of the people that we've interviewed and have met along the way. But it's okay, we're not discouraged.
That's why we still here.
Still here, bitches. We still here, bitches.
We outside.
We outside. Thank you, mi gente. Mwah. I love you. We're gonna take the IG train to Cafecito Boricua and do a Spanish version over there. Love you guys.
Thank you for joining in, and we'll see you soon.
And thank you for everyone who's wished us a happy birthday. We appreciate you.
God bless.